I'm a Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays stories I like to bring to you. I'm also over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472. Or you could join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472, where you can request a story on for a Tuesday. Or you could just subscribe, which would be fabulous. Or you could just watch, which I appreciate just as much as everything. So I'm going to begin the story now, and it's the horrifying Justina Morales story. Okay, and it really is. It is a child. Just a quick heads up. And it definitely is horrifying. So, okay. Justina Morales, born on the 19th of February 1987. Okay, a bit of an older story. She was born in Brooklyn, New York. Now her mum is Denise Solero. Okay. Now her dad, I don't know. I can only say I don't know. I don't know her dad's name. I have seen a name, but I couldn't 100% say that that's who he was. So I don't want to say the name if he's not her dad. So I'm going to leave that. Now, there's there is a couple of pictures of Justina. Not many, I will say. There's not many. She looks like a very happy, vibrant little girl. She's beautiful as well. She's got these big brown eyes. She's a beautiful little girl. Now, like I say, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of pictures of her. And there's not a lot on her. Look, the information I've got of Justina, it's really, really sad because I haven't been able to find out a lot about her other than just that she's a very, very sweet little girl. Okay. Now, by the time she gets to age 8, okay, which is around, okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go to August of 95. Okay. Now, like I say, she's about 8. And her mum starts seeing a new man, okay, who's called Luis Santiago. All right. Now, her mum at this point is about 27. Luis is about 22. Okay. Now, like I say, Justina at this point is around 8 years of age. There is a picture of her around this time, and it appears to be Halloween. All right. She's got big smiles. When I say a beautiful looking little girl, she genuinely is a beautiful looking little girl. But it's safe to say that when you look at the picture, although she's got this big smile, it's like it doesn't reach her eyes. It kind of doesn't reach her eyes. It's hard to know what's going on behind that smile, should I say. Okay. Now, she had been quite an outgoing, chatty little girl. Now, she'd become quite quiet by this point. She didn't really play out like she used to. Neighbours would see her just sat on her own in the apartment. They lived in an apartment, and on the apartment stairs, she just used to sit on her own there, not playing out with the other kids. They said it was quite sad. She'd gone quite introverted. Now, who am I to say that this is connected to the boyfriend? But let's just hold it. So now we get to the 29th of November 1995. Okay. Now remember, August 95, Lewis has moved in. Little Justina is 8 years old at this point. So we're at like I say, 29th of November 95. All right. And there's a lady by the name of Sonia Solero, and obviously this is Denise's sister. Okay. And she calls child services. And the reason she calls child services is because she's noticed that her niece, Justina, has stopped going to school. Now, why the school hasn't said anything, who knows? But she raises the alarm. She's like, she's really concerned. Like, she hasn't seen her niece. She used to see her all the time. She's not seen her. Can you look into it? So, what we find out about Justina is she's now in second grade, which she'd have started in the August. And she's only completed at this point about 30. Oh, no, sorry, she'd missed 35% of school since August. It's a lot of time she's missed out. She'd also missed a lot of time over the past few years, though. This wasn't an unusual thing. She'd missed a lot of time in kindergarten. She'd missed a lot of time in grade 1. First grade, as they call it. We call it year 1. So Denise calls the school, okay, and she says that they're moving house. So she's going to be taking Justina out of school. Is it a little bit coincidental, no? You know, all of a sudden, child services are aware of things. You know, they're starting to notice that she's not in school, and all of a sudden, oh no, I'm taking her out. So, you know, but she's going to be going to another school. But no one actually checked if Justina was enrolled in another school. No one done that. So it all sounds quite vague at the minute, and it will make sense soon, I promise. But I'll just do a quick recap. You've got Justina with her mum, Denise, okay? Little outgoing girl, beautiful, up until we notice a change in about August of 95. Now, Denise meets a boyfriend called Louise, I think his name would be pronounced, also in August of 95, all right? Now, by November, her aunt's phoning child services to say, look, she hasn't been going to school, she's missing an awful lot of school. And then all of a sudden, Denise is like, well, I'm pulling her out of school, actually, and she's going to be enrolled somewhere else because we're moving. Okay. So on the 30th of November, 95, so just the next day after the aunt's phoned, a case is opened by child services, okay? But it takes till the 5th of December, 95, so another week, before the caseworker visits the home, all right? So the caseworker turns up at Denise's apartment, and when she asks, can she see Justina? Denise is like, she's at school. What? But the real kicker is the caseworker accepts that. They accept that reason. They don't check. What school? Just ask that question. What school is she at? So we get to January the 5th of 96, okay? Whole month's gone by now. Whole month. So, you know, it's ridiculous. So the care worker visits again, okay? And Denise now says Justina's on holiday with her dad. The dad we know nothing about. I'm presuming care services don't know any, or child services, should I say, don't know anything about the dad either. But he accepts this. I believe it's a man. Accepts this explanation. My goodness me, put your teeth back in, Jessica. Accepts this explanation. My goodness. So much so that on the 1st of February 96, okay, so we go another month, he recommends that the case is closed. So he's been asked to investigate because this young girl hasn't been seen at school. Her extended family are worried about her. He talks to her mum twice. Both times her mum's got excuses as to why he can't see Justina. And he's like, oh, okay, well, what can you do? Let's close the case. You know, there's nothing to see here. I mean, ridiculous. But you would think that a supervisor, upon looking at his work or maybe looking into this would think, well, hang on a minute. Have you found out where she is? Have you actually spoken to her? But no, on the 1st of February, sorry, that was on the 1st of February 96 that he recommended it would be closed. And on the 15th of February 96, the case closure is approved. And the report was written down as unfounded. I mean, it's New York in the 90s. I mean, we've not long done a story about Shayna Bryant, haven't we? And to be honest, there are a lot more cases from the 90s in New York. You know, it was really, really bad. So, you know, there are a few names that come up during that time period. All right. So we get to February of 97 now. All right. So since the aunt has put this forward, okay, and since the last time Child Services has had anything to do with the family at all, we've now gone 13, 14 months, okay, and a tip comes through to the local police station, okay, because no one's seen this child, no one's seen her, and it's 14 months later, and it's only now, thanks to this tip coming through, that anyone's going like, oh yeah, well, where is that little girl? And the tip was by, it was from an ex-boyfriend of Denise's, okay? And he tells police that Denise's new boyfriend, Luis Santiago, as I mentioned, he's killed Justina. Okay, now, so the police are like, well, let's start an investigation. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what happens. And what had happened is Denise, who by this point was 29, Luis was 24 by this point, she broke down to her family, not just her family, but this ex-boyfriend, and basically admits that Luis killed Justina. Because, of course, her family's got to be wondering, hold on a minute, where's your daughter? Where is she? Where's she gone? We've had access to her for all these years. Where is she? Okay, so she eventually has to break down and say, you know, well, yeah, Luis killed her. I mean, so Luis is arrested, okay, and police begin a search for Justina. All right. Now, Luis, he confesses quite quickly to, murdering Justina. She's 8 years old. Okay. Now, when obviously he's confessed, now when they talk to Denise, okay, she has a course of events that she puts forward. All right. Okay. So what she says is that Luis became very abusive from literally the beginning. Okay, from the minute he moved in with her and Justina. Okay, not just to her but to Justina. And he'd not only use his fists, he'd use belts, he'd use anything he could get hold of. Now, we're supposed to believe that he was abusive to Denise. I don't know if it's just her word we're taking for that, okay? But she swears that it was her as well. It was her as well. She was getting beaten, okay? She also says that there was a point where she'd come home and Justina was scalded by what she believes is hot water from her waist down, okay? She also saw, if you're ready, Louise sexually assault Justina with a hammer. With a hammer. You know, I knew about this. I wrote it down. But to actually say it, it's like, and you were there. Mummy Dearest was there. I have no words. I have no words. Apparently this was to teach Justina a lesson. Boy sexually assaulting her with a hammer. She's 8 years old. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Then we get to this, obviously, is Denise telling us this, okay? And she says that on the 30th of December of 95. Now, remember, he only moved in with them in the August, okay? Now, although we're finding out about this later, we've gone back. So he only moved in the August. September, October, November, December. We're talking 4 months. And I believe it was near the end of August. So it's just crazy. And on this date, he'd ordered Justina to sleep naked on the floor. Right, okay. Now, there's no elaboration on that whatsoever. There's no explanation of his reasoning. It was just that he'd ordered her to sleep naked on the floor. It's very odd. And then we get to the 31st of December 1995, okay? And there are 2 explanations as to what happened, okay? We have Louise's explanation, and his explanation is that he'd fought with Denise, okay, and Justina had got into the middle of the 2 of them. She got in between them, okay? And he said that he'd hit Justina, not only with his fist, but with a metal pole. I don't understand. I don't get that she's got in between you. But surely you must have known she was there by that point. So you might have gone to hit Denise. Justina's got in the middle of you. You've perhaps hit her. But how does that continue? You would have known it was her by then. So it's very, very, very odd. And he said that it was the metal pole that killed her. Okay, that was Louise's explanation. Now, Denise, all right. Denise, when she was talking to the police, what she put forward was a very different explanation, all right? But had herself not really involved and just said, you know, he threatened me and I had to go along with this. I had no choice. So the prosecution actually cut Denise a deal, all right? So she'll testify against Louise. Now, he's already confessed that he killed Justina, but he says he hadn't meant to. It was manslaughter if it was anything. She's come forward and says, well, listen, I don't think it was quite that. Cut me a deal and I'll tell you what happened. And they do. Okay. So all she pleads guilty to is hindering prosecution by not saying that he'd killed Justina. That's all she's pled guilty to, and that's all she's charged with, okay? Because they've cut her a deal. It was only after that that they actually hear her side of the story and what she says actually happened, okay? I'm going to share it with you now. So what she says is, again, we get to the 31st of December 95, okay? It's New Year's Eve, all right? And Louise orders Justina to go and take a bath, because apparently they're all going out that evening. And Justina, for whatever reason, has said no. She's refused. She doesn't want to go and get in the bath. I don't know why. She would have had a very good reason. He was enraged. I don't know if it's that she said no. I don't know if she didn't want to get in the bath. There was obviously something very dodgy going on. You know, she would have had a very good reason why she didn't, because he'd already been very violent with this child. So you would assume she would do as she was told. So the fact that she says no, there's got to be a reason for that. Okay. Well, the fact that she said no, he felt she was so disrespectful. She dared to say no to him. Okay. So he drags Justina. She's 8 years old, let me remind you. Okay. He drags her into the bathroom, and she was thrown head first into the bath. Okay. And he then begins to try and drown this child. Tries to drown her. Okay. But she fights, and she fights so strongly. He can't get her under the water. She kicks. She moves her arms. She has her head above the water. He can't get her head below the water. You know, she fights for her life in that bath. Her mum is in that apartment. Let me just throw that out there, because don't forget, it's her mum that's telling this story. All right. So when he realizes he can't drown this little girl, okay, he yanks Justina out of the bath, throws her on the floor, okay, and then he drags her into the bedroom through the apartment, all right, and he starts beating her around the head, the face, and the body, not only with his fist, but with the metal pole. Now, remember, he'd said that in his confession, but he'd said that had been an accident somehow. Well, obviously not. That's why it made no sense. But she was still fighting so bravely. This little girl was. She really was. She was fighting for her life. But after he'd hit her with the metal pipe a few times, she passed out. She did pass out, okay? And he decided there and then that she had to die. What? How did that escalate? What? How do you get that escalation from wanting a child to go and take a bath to now we're going to kill her? And he told Denise, I can't take it anymore. That's what he says to her mum. And then he got Denise to sit on the floor with her back against the wall. This is in the bedroom, okay? And then he gets Justina in between her mum's legs, head first, lying down, okay? So Denise is sat up. Justina is laid down, sort of between her legs, all right? That's how it is. Now, Justina wakes up at this point, because don't forget, he's knocked her out with this metal bar. She's coming round, and she looks up at her mum, who's obviously leaning over her, and she says, Mummy, make me pretty. I don't... Maybe she thought they could still go to the party. It's New Year's Eve. Maybe she thought her mum could, because he battered this child. Maybe she thought her mum could. I don't know why she said it. I don't. But Louise then jumps over and pins down her legs. And he's got duct tape in his hand and he begins wrapping it round Justina's head. At least 3 times, apparently. And just during this time, Denise is also holding her down. So she's holding her arms. He's sat on her legs as he's wrapping this duct tape around. And she's holding her daughter's, it had gone from her arms and she was holding her daughter's hands. Then after he'd wrapped the duct tape around her face, he then begins to smother her, pressing down with all his weight. Okay. And while this was going on, like I say, Denise was holding her hands and holding her down and looking into her eyes. Okay. And after hours, this had gone on for hours, they tortured this child. Justina Morales died, aged 8. Okay. And Denise, her mother, said she knew that she died because her grip had loosened and she wasn't squeezing her hands back anymore. I just don't know. But it doesn't end there, guys. It doesn't, because as you know, as I said at the beginning, no one finds out about this for over another year. Okay. Now, this did happen on the 31st of December. And if you remember, Child Services came round either side of that. They came round at the beginning of December and the beginning of Jan. Had they done anything, she wouldn't have been there on New Year's Eve. So, after they've done this, okay, they wrap her body up. They put her in a shopping trolley. I don't know why that's in the apartment, but it was. And they put her in a cupboard. Okay, put her in a cupboard. And then they go to the planned New Year's Eve party. Go and have a whale of a time. Go and have a good time. Well, her daughter's dead in a cupboard in the apartment, wrapped up in a shopping trolley. Now, 1 week later, because of course they've left her there, she begins to decompose. So what they do, they wrap her. Apparently it was up to 10 rolls of duct tape that was used, and plastic bags and blankets and everything, wrapping her up. And then they put her back in the trolley. Now, there's another trolley. I don't know where the other trolley came from. Okay, I don't know. But apparently the two of them went walking down the street with 2 shopping trolleys, okay? Louise had one that contained their laundry, and Denise had the other one that contained her daughter. And they ended up leaving her. Apparently she said they walked for miles in the snow, but they left her in a vacant car park, tipped her out of the shopping trolley and left her in the snow in this car park behind a cul-de-sac. I don't think it was anywhere out in the open. Okay. They then went back and did their laundry. All right. So they brought both shopping trolleys into the laundromat, one containing the laundry, one that was now empty. And when they'd finished their laundry, they filled the laundry up into that same shopping trolley and left the other trolley that had contained Justina in the laundromat. and they went home. Now, Louise said he did go back the next day or a couple of days later to see if Justina was still there, but he said she'd gone by that point. And unfortunately, even though the police, upon hearing this, searched everywhere for this little girl, because so much time had gone by, they didn't find her. In fact, she's never been found. This little girl has never been found. And this pair lived their life as normal for the next 13 months, 14 months. They just went on as normal, making excuses as to where she was, but as a couple, just carried on like nothing had happened, in the same apartment that her daughter had been murdered in, that she'd been complicit in. Now, she'd obviously made out that he threatened her and that she was scared to death, and that's why she'd had to go along with it. But no one knew just how involved she was until she'd signed the deal. So when she was on the stand testifying against Louise, the prosecutor actually said, when she was describing Louise smothering Justina, he said, "So you let her die, didn't you?" And she says, "Yes, I did." And she goes, "I did what he told me to do." And she's gone along the route of like a battered woman syndrome. She's gone along that route. But no, you don't get to do that. Now, like I say, Denise had pled guilty to hindering the prosecution of Louise by not telling anyone about this. Okay, that was her charge. But because obviously she cut a deal to testify against him. And like I say, they didn't know her involvement until after she cut the deal. And they needed her because Justina's body, as I've said, was never found. They were trying to, even though they had his confession, they only had his say-so that it was an accident as far as he was concerned. He hadn't meant to. Whereas they needed Denise because she would say, "No, it wasn't an accident. I know what he did." So the sentence for Denise, for Mum, who was completely complicit in the murder of her 8-year-old daughter, was 5 years probation. I don't know what to say. Now, I think everyone was kicking themselves afterwards once they found out just how involved she was, but it was too late. I mean, I don't know. Can you not get her on anything else? I presume not. And the prosecution was saying, look, they both would have got away with this. You know, we needed her to do this. But he openly said he hadn't known her involvement at that point. Now, Louise, well, he was found guilty, okay, but the jury themselves nearly let him off. Now, I don't know if they thought she wasn't a credible witness or that they believed it was her. But apparently at first, they weren't going to convict him at all, and they certainly weren't going to convict him of second-degree murder, which is what the charge was. So they agreed to find him guilty of manslaughter, which is originally what he said it was. You know, he said it was an accident. All his family apparently were in the court, you know, cheering him on, not believing what Denise had said about him. He'd confessed to murdering this child. He'd already confessed to it. What are you cheering on? So he was sentenced to 19 years. That was it. Now, I know that's if this was a UK story, that'd be quite substantial. But the fact that it's American, I'm just finding there's been a couple of stories recently. I'm just so disappointed. So disappointed. I don't know if it is because it's New York. A couple of these stories I'm doing, and they are a little bit more lenient. I don't know. I don't know. But he was sentenced to 19 years. And he was released in 2016. Okay. He'd done his 19 years, but he was released in 2016. And Mummy Dearest did no time at all. Nothing. 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 She didn't pay anything, any punishment for joining in. She was just as guilty, if not worse. So I understand where people were coming from with regards to in the trial. You know, I don't know, were they trying to take the blame off him, or were they trying to say, look, it was both of them? I don't know. But she did no time at all. And right up until this day, little Justina Morales' body was never found. So because there was no body ever found, we still can only go on these pairs' word of what actually happened. We don't know. Did they just drop her off at this random cul-de-sac in the snow? Which sounds crazy to me. What? She's just gone? She's just disappeared? I mean, obviously it was 13, 14 months later by the time anyone started to look for this girl. It was only her aunt that showed any concern. But what about the schools? Child services again? I mean, there's a few stories from New York at that time. Like I say, with Shana Bryant's story, that there was a lot of problems around that time period. There really was. It just seemed case after case after case after case. You know, I haven't done a lot of the stories. I really haven't. But I will bring a couple more to you, because I'm just finding so many from that time period. And it was like, what was going on? What was going on with child services? What was going on with the school system that you didn't notice a girl just dropped off the face of the earth? You know, it's not like she just started school either. It's not like she was in reception or kindergarten. She was 8 years old. She was established. She would have had friends. She would have known the teachers. You know, I know she missed a lot of school, but she would have been in, like, no one highlighted this little girl, hadn't been seen. I just think it's so sad. And the fact that she's never been laid to rest and put to peace. I think it's just heartbreaking. I really do. But that was the horrifying Justina Morales story. Oh God. I just think it's just such a shame. It really is. I feel like there's still stuff missing from this story. I really do. I feel like if I could have got more information, I would have. I was looking at the newspaper reports and everything else. There just wasn't enough on this little girl. There was, of course, the uproar and why didn't the school notice and all the malarkey, but we know, you know, it happened again the following year with another child. So, it's just awful. But thank you so much for joining me again. I really do appreciate it. Like I say, I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you do have a request, obviously let me know. And if you'd like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I don't know what's happened this evening. I keep need a new pair of teeth. But thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Thank you. Take care.